Hello again and welcome to Lifestyle Gardening. I'm Kim Todd and we've got another great program for you this afternoon. Today we'll be looking at getting you started early with cuttings in the greenhouse. We'll see more great examples of Western ornamentals and we'll talk about pruning your fruit trees. To get us started today, we're going to help you with some tips on mail order plants. It's really fun to browse through the colorful catalogs you get each year, and we'll help you figure out how to get what you want to try this season. Good gardeners, bad gardeners, starting out gardeners, and plant nerds really love to get their hands on plants, especially ones that might be a little bit unusual. We have lots of opportunities to do that, starting during the dormant season or in the winter. And of course, buying local is always great, but there's not much to buy locally right now unless you're going after the house plants. You can, however, use old-fashioned catalogs, the ones that come in the real mail and have colored covers and great pictures, or go online, and most of those companies, of course, have the same catalog online. A lot of things to keep in mind, however, about buying mail order plants. First off, we always tell people to make sure you check the zone, and that would be the growing zone in which you live. Remember that those zones stretch all the way across the country, and zone 4 or 5 in Nebraska may or may not be the same zone as it is in Washington or on the West Coast. So you look for the zone first, and then pick out the plants you love. Take a look at exactly how they're going to be shipped to you. This is really important. People can be disappointed in a mail order plant because they have an expectation of size that really doesn't match what the supplier is going to do. As an example, you'll see the words bare root plant and you'll see a size 12 inches to 18 inches. Bare root plants are shipped differently mail order than ones that come in a small container. A good supplier of bare root plants will ship them only during very specific times of the year. They will be very well packed, either in peat moss or Excelsior or shredded newspaper, and then typically put in a bag of some sort that will help hold that moisture while they're being shipped. That doesn't mean, however, they're not going to dry out, especially if you have not chosen a fast shipping method. So you want to check on the shipping method as well, and if it is a plant that you really want, you've paid a bit of money for it, you want to make sure that it is not languishing in the back of a truck or in the post office someplace, you may want to pay the difference and get that plant shipped a little bit faster. Then you also want to look at the sizes of container that are available. Again, it costs a lot of money to ship a big ball of soil halfway across the country. Many suppliers of mail order plants will put a maximum or a minimum on the number of containers of a certain size that they will ship, because those are the ones they can pack in the boxes. A gallon container, of course, will be a lot heavier. You'll get fewer in the box, but you'll get a bigger plant. A smaller one, a 4-inch or even a little cell pack, obviously you can buy more of them to fit in a different size box. Your plant is also smaller. What you want to make sure that you do also is look at the information that that supplier has given you about the actual shipping dates. And many times they will have limits. They'll say they will not ship after a certain date because it's too hot. They will not ship before a certain date because it's too cold. And if they ship before a certain date, what are you going to do in your own home with plants that are either bare root and sitting in a plastic bag, or plants that really don't want to stay inside a greenhouse because they're already green and growing and they're in a container? People will put plants that come in bare root in their refrigerator to keep them from breaking dormancy and keep them cool until it's time to plant. Strawberries are an example. They come bare root, they come in a bundle, typically tied with a rubber band or a twisty, and then they forget about them. And they open that refrigerator and here comes strawberries that are mush, the plants themselves, instead of an actual plant. So again, to summarize, enjoy that shopping. You can also, with certain companies, go online and go to an e-commerce site and perhaps pick out one of something that a nursery may not carry that might be able to be shipped directly from that major supplier to a local nursery with your name on it, give you the opportunity to get it without that nursery, that local nursery, having to buy 5, 10, 15, or 20 of something when in fact they may only be able to sell one. So have a great time doing this, but again, read that fine print. This is one of those situations where you want to know exactly what's getting shipped to you, when, and how. There's so many cool selections and fun plants to try in these catalogs, whether they're paper or online. Just make sure you're reading all of that fine print so you don't end up wasting your money or getting plants when you can't handle them. You know, we've had a lot of fun with our Go Gardening features this year, where we've tried to give new gardeners help with basic information to get them started. This week, we're going to give you tips on taking cuttings and using them to start new plants. It's a pretty straightforward process. Here to tell us more is UNL Agronomy Horticulture grad student Josh Resnicek.
Today we're going to talk about herbaceous cuttings and another step that you can take toward getting your garden a little ready a little bit sooner. So today we're going to be using a coleus variety that we have in front. We'll start with the containers that we'll use today. I have two in front of me, different types. We have just your typical 606 cell packs. The other one will be the seed germination tray. You can either use either or. If you're nice and neat and organized, these plants will come out as plugs then once you go into the garden, or you can just take them directly out of the seed germination tray that doesn't have any dividers and go straight to the garden as well. So I'll use the 606 tray for the demonstration today. In here I have a pre-made media mix. It's a combination of perlite as well as a seed germination mix. That's really it for the media. You're just looking for something well drained. As far as the plant material, we're going to be using herbaceous plant material today. There's 4 different types of cuttings. You have your herbaceous, which a lot of your succulent plant growth, your your softwoods, which is new spring growth, and then semi-hardwood and hardwood cuttings that are a lot of tree species and stuff like that. So today we're just going to be dealing with the herbaceous plant material. When taking these cuttings, it's ideal to use a sanitized razor blade for this. You can use pruners or scissors of sort, but I try to stay away from that because that creates a crushing action and damages the plant more than a nice clean razor blade cut would do. So when taking these cuttings, you're going to be looking for the nodes of the plant. Everywhere a leaf axil comes out of the plant is a node. So you're ideally looking for a minimum of 2 nodes per cutting. What's going to happen is that's going to promote your adventitious rooting below the soil line and your adventitious shoot growth above the soil line. So a minimum of 2 nodes, ideally 2 nodes below and 1 above. The last node that you have, the rest of the stem, you don't want a huge long piece sticking off of this. It's just going to desiccate and die back and potentially cause more problems. So you want to get fairly close to that last node and cut that off. To aid in the rooting, the adventitious rooting of these plant materials, there's multiple different rooting hormones that you can use, different products. Every store is going to have a little bit different one. There's liquid formulations I'll be using today, as well as powdered formulations. The powdered ones, I just suggest that you pre-drill the holes before you stick the cuttings, because if you just use the cutting to stick the hole in, it's going to rub off on the way down. So, and again, it's just a quick dip. Nothing, you don't have to let it soak or anything like that. And then you're going to stick that cutting. And again, pre-drilling, I usually just use the end of a marker and then stick that cutting in there and kind of loosely compact around there. You'll notice that there's a lot of leaf material around this cutting. Now that we've cut all the root material off of this cutting, it's not going to have any way to bring up water or nutrients from the soil. So we're going to have to reduce this leaf tissue area with the razor blade, some of this leaf material, and you can remove whole leaves, half leaves, it doesn't really matter. Just a reduction of that leaf surface area to reduce the metabolism rate of that cutting. Once this occurs, you can go through the whole flat, and for this one it'd be 36 cuttings. It does take a couple weeks for this to heal off, callus, and then for root initials to form. So You're looking at a minimum of 2 weeks before you probably start seeing any form of root initials. For post care, you're looking for a humid environment. You can do this by putting those clear domes over the top, but then after they've healed off, you want to reduce the light intensity as well, since you want to reduce that metabolism rate. And as it goes on, you can increase that light, kind of harden them off, so that way when you put them out in the garden, they don't have any issues.
There are few things better to gardeners than free plants. By following these simple tips, you'll be well on your way to all kinds of fun projects to try for this upcoming growing season. If you have more questions about cuttings or plant propagation, check out your favorite online gardening websites or contact your local extension office. During the winter months, some of your woody ornamentals are dormant and are in need of some simple pruning. Pruning anything is a little intimidating to some gardeners, so we're here to offer some tips. For this week's landscape lesson, we'll help you see the difference between which are floral buds and which are not. Late winter and early spring are good times to do a lot of pruning on certain landscape plants. And this is also the time of year when we get questions about how to tell the difference between the floral buds and the vegetative or the foliage buds. On some shrubs, it certainly doesn't make any difference because we're not growing them for the flowering. On others, however, if you don't know what you're looking at and you do want to do the pruning during the dormant season, you may in fact be ruining the flowering for that season. So let's take a look at a couple of them and talk about how you can see the differences. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. One thing to always keep in mind also is remember when those shrubs flower. If they flower early in the spring, like forsythias or lilacs, they're likely to have set their flower buds right after flowering the previous year. We call that old wood or one-year-old wood. And that means that if you're going to do any pruning without ruining those flower buds, you need to do it after they flower in the summer. So that's a little bit of a different ball game. Here's an example. This is actually one of the flowering cherries, one of the bush cherries. And you can see these buds right here. Those are the floral buds. Those are the vegetative buds. This is one that blooms very, very early in the spring. Lilacs are a classic. This happens to be the little leaf lilac, and it's a little bit harder, of course, to see the flower buds when the buds themselves are so little. But if you look really closely, you can see two vegetative buds surrounding a bud that will be a flower bud. This is another one, again, that you don't prune if you don't want to lose the flowers. You wait until after it blooms. Viburnums have oftentimes what we call naked flower buds, and it's really simple to see what those buds look like. This is a great example of a flower bud, a floral bud that was set last season. Here are the vegetative or the foliage buds on either side of it. So the simple thing here is if you really need to prune it, and here's another example, you can go ahead and prune this here or prune it right here. You're not going to ruin the floral display for this year. So again, knowing what you're looking at, taking some time to pay attention to where the shrub flowers also makes a really big difference. If you know that, you can begin to look a little more closely at which buds are going to produce flowers and which ones are going to produce foliage. Good gardeners understand the value of what, when, and where to make those pruning cuts. It can be confusing at times, but if you know your plants, you'll get the hang of it in no time. You know, Nebraska has a number of areas in the state where specific ornamentals thrive. The different climate and environmental conditions mean some home landscapes are going to look very different as you go from north to south and east to west. Last week we talked about some western ornamentals with Amy Seiler from the Nebraska Forest Service, and now Amy returns to tell us more. We learned so much from Amy Seiler on our last segment about western Nebraska plants that we decided to have her back, give her another shot at talking about all the beautiful things she loved. So, Amy, tell us what you brought today and tell us why you can grow it and we can't, and maybe what some of the alternatives are west versus east.
Okay, sounds great. Well, I brought some really unique plants today, and the main thing about a lot of these plants is that they would prefer very limited water. So they're ideal plants for central and western Nebraska. The other thing that's unique about these plants is that they would prefer to be in a higher pH soil.
Wow.
So that is, we're always looking for plants that will grow in a higher pH soil, and what we have in front of us are some really good ones. The first thing that I would like to show you, this is Apache Plume, and this is a semi-evergreen shrub, and it blooms a white flower, but then it has this unbelievable pink flower. It just looks like this silky, wispy, not flower, seed head, excuse me, and it looks incredible all summer long. And so you have all this great texture and interest, and it looks incredible in a dry landscape where sometimes you can lack a little bit of flower interest. Great plant, 3 to 5 feet tall maybe. It'll be shorter if it gets less water. So that's a good one for people to try.
We have tried that in the east with a little success if it's dry enough. And probably our high humidity and our lower pH is going to limit its life a little bit.
It would not enjoy that very much. It really wants to be neglected. And I will just forewarn people, when they first plant it, the bloom is not that impressive. It's the seed head is why you plant this plant. The seed head will take your breath away.
Perfect. All right, what else did you bring for us?
Okay, I brought another fun plant, and what I have in front of me right now, this is called wavy leaf oak. It is an actual oak, and it is native to southwest Colorado, New Mexico, and it is an incredible plant. It's a small tree or a large shrub. You can prune it up to have a multi-stem trunk, and it is incredibly drought tolerant. It holds its foliage. It's kind of a silvery foliage color, but Kim, as you touch it, it's spiny.
I thought it was a holly and I thought, holy cow, she has brought a holly with no green left in the leaves. I've never ever seen that plant.
I've used that in several landscapes, and it gives great winter interest and something to talk about in the summer for sure.
Perfect. All right, you also have another oak, I think, if I'm not mistaken on that one.
You are correct. This is just a scrub oak or gamble oak, and this is a plant that we really like to use in the West. It's much smaller than your oaks back east, but I like this plant because it will hold its foliage in the winter depending on the genetics of it, and it gives me a little bit more winter interest. It also helps block the wind a little bit in the landscapes, captures a little bit of snow, and I love this leaf look in the wintertime when I don't have much to look at. Plus it's great habitat for animals.
You know, and we actually can grow gamble here. It's a different form, but at least it looks like gamble. And then you brought truly a broadleaf evergreen that we decided is not your native, but it's amazing to see it growing here.
Yes, I actually clipped this from my neighbor's house, and I had originally thought that it was Oregon grape holly, and we can grow the smaller form of Oregon grape holly. It's native out there, but I found this can grow out west. It needs to be in a protected location, and that's exactly where I found it. But I've watched my neighbor's plant for years, and it has never desiccated. It looks good all of the time. So in just the right spot, you can have some of these broadleaf evergreens, and they'll do okay.
Which is perfect. So the combination is great, and as we always love to say to our guests, thank you so much for coming, driving all the way in, and sharing what we would love to have, but we live here.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. You know, we love that burst of color we get in the springtime from our plants, but it's nice to know these plants can also deliver color and texture during the dull winter months. Thanks so much to Amy for sticking around and talking to us again. Alrighty, let's take a few minutes now to answer our viewer emails. We'd love to hear from you. Perhaps you can share a picture or two with us. Send us an email to byf@unl.edu. Our first question comes from Omaha, and we've actually talked about this a bit in past seasons and maybe even this year, and that is that some bulbs are coming up. In this case, it's a little better than that, or maybe worse than that in their minds, because what they have is they have snowdrops already in flower. The email was actually dated January 23rd. So looking back in the record book, at least for our snowdrops on campus, that is pretty early. We have them blooming February 4th, not January 23rd. And of course, their question is, what happens now? Well, obviously, it's too late to do anything other than enjoy it. If there is snow in the forecast, the snow can help insulate. You may see certainly a little bit less vigorous plant next year from that bulb, depending on how the snow cover lasts and depending on how much freezing occurs of the foliage. But for heaven's sakes, don't cut that foliage back once that snow cover diminishes in the spring. So just enjoy it. That's really all you can do when nature throws sort of a whammy at us in terms of the season. We have a viewer down in the Auburn area that has some serious tree damage, and she's wondering whether this in fact could be a porcupine. Is this deer? Is this squirrels? What exactly is going on here? We've sent this off to our critter creature Dennis Ferraro for an answer, and we will actually post this both on our website and to Facebook, but the chances of this being a rabbit are slim and none, a squirrel slimmer and nunner, because of course the squirrels are not going to do that amount of damage on the trunk of a tree that high. Could be porcupines, although we're not really seeing too many of them in the southeast part of the state or in that corner. Could very well be deer damage. The unfortunate thing, of course, is that amount of stripping and bark damage probably means an end to a successful life for that particular tree. We have a viewer out in the Lexington area that had ornamental grasses in their landscape and waited until about now to cut them back, and in so doing discovered what looks like a lot of damage around the crown of the plant. And they're seeing places where something has sort of burrowed through or has run through or has used those grasses as shelter. Their question is not how to get rid of the critter, because first off, they'd have to know what it is and then what to do about it. But more importantly, can they, in the spring, dig those grasses up, divide them, and then reset them and hope to have some success? The answer is a kind of a guarded yes on that. And what they will want to do is, first off, take as big a clump of the root mass as possible, and then tease apart those grasses in the locations where it appears as though the damage has been done. Take a good look and make sure that if it was a creature, they have not nipped off or chewed off all of those roots from below the crown of that plant. And if they have not, go ahead and reset those plants, making sure that you don't set them at a depth any lower than they were previously or any higher. Backfill with good soil from the surrounding area. Don't use any of that amended stuff. Give them a good drink and hope that maybe next year you won't have that same issue with the damage to it. But, you know, I would probably wait at this point, even though we don't have much frost in the ground in a lot of areas. I'd wait until we're a bit later in the season to do that, just in case our weather is really strange going into spring. We've got one more feature this season of Lifestyle Gardening. Earlier in the program, we helped you with tips on pruning some of your woody ornamentals, and right now we'd like to turn our focus to pruning your fruit trees. The right cuts at the right time of year will help your fruit trees be more productive during the harvest time of the year. You know, even though we're in mid-February and we tell you to prune your trees when they're dormant, for fruit trees, it is too early. We want to really hit that window for pruning fruit trees right before they break dormancy, because that helps avoid damage potentially to either the tree itself or to the fruiting spurs. The interesting thing about our little orchard here in the Backyard Farmer Garden is these trees are not very old. They've only been in the ground about 2 years. They have grown exponentially with one exception, and that would be our poor sad little peach tree. But we also have not done a great job of pruning them. And I say that on purpose because one of the things we want to be able to do is tell you how to not do what we have either done wrong or we should be doing differently. So these are all apple trees, and then we have our Nectoplum. The Nectoplum is a hybrid and it's a cross, so it is very, very vigorous and is showing a lot of growth. Last year our season produced really exponential growth in some of our fruit trees, long, whippy sorts of growth, and these are the kinds of things that we're going to want to control if we are really after a good fruit crop. Apple trees do what we call doubling, and you can see that they throw 2 shoots or 2 branches from a very narrow connection. They also tend to branch with maybe not very good connections. What we're going to look at this year and accomplish as we get closer to the break of dormancy is opening the structure up. We'll make good pruning cuts. We will essentially be able to throw a bushel basket through the interior of these trees without hitting a branch. We'll do some reduction on the height. We'll take care of anything that is pointing back into the center of the tree. And then we will hope that that will help produce a good fruiting crop for us. We do a different kind of pruning on peaches, and we do a different kind of pruning on our nectaplum. You'll be able to see on the nectaplum some of the gummosis, as it's called, which was a result of doing some pruning cuts last year. That is not necessarily a terrible thing for plants in the peach, the plum, the apricot family, but you do have to also look and make sure that you don't have some borer damage going on. You can see in all of these apple trees, however, and in the nectaplum, a lot of the doubling and too much stuff up in the top, and that is going to mean we don't have good air circulation, we don't have enough light, we have a lot of foliage and not much fruit. The nectaplum actually produced a double leader in it, and they're actually competing leaders. Realistically, this is a small, short-lived tree. We are not going to correct that double leader at this time, but we're going to make sure that we keep that as healthy as we possibly can and hold on to that tree. The pruning dose on fruit trees to be able to get them to actually fruit makes them really not look like fruit trees like ornamental trees in the landscape. They look pretty weird. So since we use this for teaching for our students and our master gardeners, you may not see perfect pruning here, but we also will send you to some great links so you can get started on pruning your own fruit trees in your own orchard and do it correctly at the right time of year to be able to produce the amount of fruit that you're after. Getting the right pruning done at the right time will make a world of difference in your tree's health and productivity. Cleaning up damaged or broken limbs is always the first place to start when pruning. After you've done that, a bit of thinning will help trees with air circulation and cut down on overproduction. That's all the time we have for Lifestyle Gardening this year. We've had a wonderful time bringing you tips and interviews again this season, and you can still follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, as well as all get ready for the upcoming growing season. Don't forget, Backyard Farmer is right around the corner as we start another year of gardening advice in April. So good afternoon, good gardening, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all next winter on Lifestyle Gardening.